to the science lab. This is not a kitchen. And the way I can tell is because it specifically says not a kitchen. So this is the science lab. Welcome to the science lab. So this is going to be the activity that involves shaking some sugar cubes and pretending like the sugar cubes are representing rocks. So that way we are going to be modeling some sort of weathering and erosion that might be happening up on mountains. So this goes along with a mystery science lesson that hopefully you watched the mystery science part. And now here is the activity part. So these are sugar cubes. The way I know is because it literally says on it, sugar cubes. So sugar cubes, you buy them at the grocery store. It was like $4 or something. They didn't have them at my Walmart though, so I had to go to the Lucky. But anyway, so if you're interested in doing something like this, maybe you could do that. I also had some fancier sugar cubes. I bought these when I was in London a couple years ago. And at first I thought I could do it with these, but it really wasn't working that well. I experimented with them. They're a little bit larger than the other sugar cubes. And wait, I take that back. They're the same size. They seem larger, but the darker color made it a little more difficult to do the thing that we're about to do to it. So anyway, it might work with some other kinds of sugar cubes, but otherwise the white kind definitely works. So I'm going to be following along on my iPad with Doug's instructions. So far, the first instruction that he has said to do is to use your sugar shake data sheet and to complete this part right here about what do you think your sugar cube looks like now. So I've inserted a photo. There it is. And that's a close-up look of what a sugar cube looks like. So just do a quick sketch. Please pause the video while you're doing your sketches and things so that way you won't miss anything. So for question number 2, go ahead and answer that question about what do you think it'll look like after you shake this sugar cube with a couple other sugar cubes involved too. And if we shake that for 200 times, what do you think the sugar cube's going to look like? Now, you might need a little bit of extra information. So let me just show you what happens if I gently rub this with my hand. I'm not sure if that's showing up. I will take a photo though of this so that way you can see what that looks like up close after I have rubbed my finger on it. All right, so you've got started by doing questions 1 and 2, and now we're ready to move on. Next question is asking you, how many edges does a sugar cube have? So go back to the photos that you were just looking at and see if you can count that. You could also use, of course, any other cube, just a box or anything, right? Because this box is very similar to the sugar cube in that it is going to have the same number of edges. So go ahead and count that accurately, and let's move on. Now, what you want to do is we want to color the edge of the sugar cube. So what I'm going to do is color with a couple different colors. I'm going to start with the red, and all I'm doing is coloring the edges. So I'm just going right along the edge with my marker. And I'll do that with another color, with another marker. And I got markers all over my hands. Yay! Mrs. Holder is covered in ink once again, just like regular, just like the science lab. So now if we were doing this in the class, then we'd have you kids decide who's going to be a shaker first and who's going to be a counter, but it doesn't matter. We're all just going to do it at the same time, and we're going to move it on. So what I'm going to do now is to take one of the sugar cubes and just leave it out. So I have a little platform here. I'll show down so that you can see. Here's all my stuff. So I'm going to set the red one there, and I'm going to continue to do the activity part with just the green one. Then what we want to do is to take 3 other sugar cubes, voila, 1, 2, and 3, and the one that I'm going to experiment with, which is the green one. Again, the red one is still sitting right here. I'm just going to set it here and put a cover on. Now, dun, 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 the first trial involves shaking the container 40 times. Then, after we do that, you will describe the shape of the sugar cube. What does it look like now? How did they change? And how many edges can you see with that still have color on them? So Of course, we can also notice the changes that take place in the ones that are not colored, but the one that is colored is definitely going to be able to show the changes a lot easier. So that's why we colored it. So that way we have a point of reference. That way we can see what's going to happen. All right, so I'm going to shake 40 times. And I'm imagining that I'm going to speed this up so that you don't have to sit there and watch me shake it 40 times. But here we go. That was 30. Let me keep going. Okay, I just decided to change the direction because, I don't know, it just seemed like a good idea. So there we go. So let's see what has happened. Dun, 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 dun. So, ooh, this is intriguing. So I've got 2 of the plain ones. Here's the 3rd plain one. And then this, dun, 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 is the colored one. So up close. Oops, sorry. So up close, here's what everything looks like. So here's what everything looks like up close. There is the colored cube and the plain cubes. So looking in the container, you can see there's some stuff that looks like, I don't know, green sugar. Oops, I just spilled it all over the counter. So there's some green sugar, and I need to add in the stuff that I just spilled all over the counter. So let me fix that problem. It landed on the paper that was right there. Hey, what a good plan, right? If you're gonna make a mess, at least try to make a mess in a clean way. Sure. Okay, there's the rest of it. Oops. Made a mistake. Okay, back to business. All right, so describe the shape of the sugar cube. So you're doing your observations now. And then how many edges still have some color? So let's look very closely. And it says still have some color, right? So we've got 4 showing to you right now, and they still have color. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 that are vertical. So that was the first set that I showed you, and these are the second set of edges. So now let's look at the bottom edges. Would you say that they all still have some color? I mean, that one's barely, but the question is some. So yeah, it still has some color. So we're going to say 4 on top, 4 around the middle section, and the 4 edges on the bottom. So it looks to me like all 12. By the way, did you get that as your answer for number 3? That there's 12 edges on the sugar cube. And right now it looks like all 12 still have color. Cool. So now let's shake again. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 40. Check it out. So you will just continue on like this, and I'll come up and show you what it looks like up close, and then you can just continue on making your observations. So this is your observation for trial number 2. Okay. So here is the plain sugar cubes. Here is the colored sugar cube. I'll count the edges in just a second with you. And again, we've got a lot of stuff. I'm not going to show it as tipped over as I did last time. Okay, as far as how many edges still have color, I think I'll turn it this way. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. So all the edges on this top part still have color. 5, 6, 7, definitely 8. Okay, so all of those still had color. And then the bottom, 9, 10, 11. And you know what? I don't know. Should we count it? There's like the tiniest little bit. I guess we should count it because it's some color, but it's very, 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 very small. So all 12, sure. But if you want to just say 11, I'll have your back on that one. Okay, so do your observations. Pause if you need. Do your observation, and I'm going to keep shaking. Oh, this would be exhausting. Can't be sarcastic. It's not really that bad. Okay, moving on. Okay, we've got our 3. Ooh, definitely getting different looking, that's for sure. So there's the 3 that are plain. And here is our Here is our colored one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the bottom, ooh, definitely no color along that one side right there. So 8 has color. I'm going to say 9 because there's this tiny bit right there. 10, 11. But that's it. Only 11 this time. And of course, we're getting a lot more of the sugar in there. Okay, do your observation. That was number 3, wasn't it? Yes, 3. That was 3. Okay, so write that down. And now let's move on. Here we go. Next round of shaking. 21, 22, 40. Okay, here we go. Right, so there are the 3. Check it out. They are definitely changing, right? Look at how smooth and like rounded. This reminds me of the candy gumdrops. Doesn't that kind of look like a gumdrop shape now? For some reason, that's all square on the bottom there, but this part, the top edge of this, is all rounded away. So we've got those 3, and here is the colored one. And as far as how many edges does it still have colored, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6. Ooh, you know what? I think that's just some extra green that's on it. I don't think that's from the color. I think that it's just getting green because of the green dust that's in there now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to count that one. 6, 7. Yeah, so I think it's only 7 on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so that one I'm not counting. And then, I guess I'll call that one 8 and 9. Wow. Now we're down to 9. So that was number 4. So do your observations for number 4. Press pause, and I will continue. Here we go. This is the last time. This is for round 5, trial 5. 1, 2, 3, and dun, 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 dun. That was weird. Did you see that? All this powdery dust stuff. Ooh, note to self. If we were in the science lab, we'd have eye protection because I don't want you kids getting hurt. But it just occurred to me, oops, I'm not being a very good role model here. Sorry about that, guys. So luckily, everything is fine. All right, so there's our 3, definitely getting more and more and more rounded. It's weird, though, that it's one edge is still, or one side of it is still kind of square, and the other end is getting rounded. Very weird. And here's the one that was colored. So, wow. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then nothing. Yes, we're going to count that 5, and 6, and 7. So we had 1 completely blank, just like before. So that's 7. And now we're going to say no, 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 and yes. So that's 8. So there's only 8 now that still have color. So there you go. So go ahead and answer your questions on the lab sheet. So I'll take a photo of the sugar cubes. There they are. There's what they look like. So what you want to do now is to draw your picture of what they look like now in step 5. Then you want to go ahead and compare your picture number 5 to what you drew for number 2. And that's your answer for question 6. So question 6 is asking, does your drawing that you just made for 5, does that match the guess of what you thought would be happening in question number 2? Then move on to the longer questions on the second page of the worksheet. What happened to the sugar cubes when they bashed together in the container? I'm hoping that you can think that through, right? What was going on inside there? When you take the sugar cubes out of the container, what's left? I think you knew because we saw it happening. So there you go. That's what's left. That is question number 8. And for question 9, what do you think would happen if you shook rocks instead of sugar cubes? So if we had rocks here and we were shaking around the rocks, what would be happening? Would the rocks act like the sugar cubes, or would there be something a little bit different going on? I don't know. But maybe you could try, right? So if you couldn't find sugar cubes, if you have some rocks in your yard, definitely try this with the rocks. In fact, I used to do it with rocks in the science lab. It's just this particular mystery science lessons has you do it with sugar cubes, but definitely you can do this with rocks too. Then for question 10, how many more shakes do you think it would take to make the sugar cubes really round, like all the way like a marble? So this again is what they look like. So this is what this one looks like right now, where half of it is pretty round, half of it is still kind of square. So if that's after 200 shakes, what do you think? How long do you think it would take to do something significant to make the whole thing round? In the picture, you can see I also took a picture of the sugar cube that we did not shake, the one with the red edges. So now you have something to compare that to. So when you're answering your questions, you can keep in mind the red sugar cube and what that one looks like without having shook it around at all. In the mystery science lesson, as soon as you're done with the rock shakes and doing your observations and filling out the worksheet questions, the next thing to do is that there are some questions to discuss as a class. So I'll just show this up to the screen so that way you can see the picture a little bit better. And there's 2 questions for us to discuss here. The rocks on the left side of your screen, they're labeling that as being rocks at the top of a mountain and that they're very jagged. The edges are very jagged and sharp. But on the right side of the screen, the rocks at the bottom of the mountains are more rounded, as you can see in this picture. So the rocks at the top are jagged, pointy, sharp. The rocks at the bottom are rounded and more smooth. And of course, our question is, why do you think the rocks look different? What happened? Hopefully, by doing this activity, you have an idea about what probably happened. But I'll give you a hint. It's not that somebody had a big, giant Rubbermaid container and put the rocks in there and was shaking it around. That's not it. No, that's not it. But think about it. What could have been happening, right? We've been learning about erosion and weathering since 2nd grade. What is it that could be happening to the rocks as the rocks move from the top of a mountain to the bottom of the mountain, right? Because the rocks are not going to stay put. So they're moving from one place to the other. So the question is, what happened to the rocks as they moved from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain? How did they move, right? Nobody's pushing them. It's not a person involved here. But what happens? And by the way, because a lot of times when we do this in class, kids will say, oh, there's earthquakes and earthquakes shake it loose. Yeah, I guess, but that's not really it. That's not really the main thing that's going on here. So it's not really earthquakes that are doing anything here. There's another force that happens a lot of the time right now during the summertime, not happening so much here in California anyway, but there's something else that happens, an agent of erosion and weathering, we say, that's involved with getting the rocks loose, moving them, making them hit together. Come on, people, work with me. You guys understand this. You know this. This is something that we've done for many, many years. Hopefully you have somebody at home you can talk to about that question. Otherwise, definitely just think it through yourself. You could even draw yourself a picture on the back side of one of these worksheet pages, or if you have a science notebook where you're keeping everything together, definitely just draw it out, write out, here's why I think rocks are jagged at the top of a mountain and why they're more rounded at the bottom of a mountain. So write that out and think it through. And the last thing is to take a look at this picture here and to note that the fossils that we've been talking about this whole time were found under a layer of what they are labeling here as loose sand and gravel. But if I advance to the next slide here, it says that they were found under a layer of sand and rounded rocks. So the gravel that they're talking about is rounded, given that information. So the question then to think about is, how could the sand and rounded rocks have gotten there? Where could they have come from? So if the fossils are here, and then on top of them was that layer of sandstone, and on top of that is this layer of sand and gravel, rounded gravel. What does that mean? How could that have got there? So hopefully you got an idea that maybe it has to do with mountains and rivers. Maybe. And if so, hopefully you can now think about it in terms of this map of North America. So some of you I know printed out this map and have been using it. It was optional. You don't have to. But even if you weren't doing it, you can now just look at this picture on the screen. Or you can go back to the Mystery Science video and watch this. Just fast forward and advance it till you get to this. But anyway, there is, on this map, they're showing where different features are. And what we're looking at today is the brown area, because that's showing where there's mountains. And the blue lines are rivers. So if you don't have that yet added to your map, you can add those things to your map. You can pause the video, of course, to get it right where they go. So the question is, are there mountains and rivers around Ashfall Fossil Beds site? Hopefully you can see that the answer is, well, yes. So using the map to help us predict how the sand and rounded rocks formed a layer on top of the rhino bones. How could that have happened? And lastly, if you're using this chart, now go ahead and add in the Mystery 3 section any information from this mystery that could help us answer one of those questions. Remember, as you're doing this, you might not be adding to all of these sections at one time. You might just be answering one question in one of these areas. If you hadn't done it before, where you printed out the map and this chart, I've linked it again on today's assignment page, so that way you can definitely go back and print it if you need to. All righty. And the last question is, predict what changes in the land could have uncovered the rhinoceros fossils. So if we have that layer of fossils, and we have sandstone, and we have sand and gravel on top of that, rounded gravel and sand on top of that, how is it that that layer of fossils could have been exposed? So what would have had to have happened over time in order for that to be exposed? And that is it for today. There are some extensions in the Mystery Science lesson itself. So if you want to go back to the Mystery Science video link on this page somewhere and go ahead and click on that and get to the very end, there are some additional things that you want to do if you are interested. So there you go, kids. Thanks very much for letting me know that it was helpful for me to do this video for you. I just wasn't sure if getting sugar cubes was going to be a big deal or not. And several kids said, yes, please do the activity. We can't get sugar cubes. So cool. I hope that you have a great rest of your week. And I can't wait to see you again back at school. Take care. Bye.